Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the next episode of Tilly. Tilly is brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of New England. I'm your host, Marissa Zeppieri-Caruana. Some of you already know me as Lupus Chick. So in today's episode, as we kick off Season 9, Episode 1, we are talking with Selena Colon. She is the founder of MyLoopyLife. She is currently living in New Jersey, and we have so many questions for you, Selena. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I've wanted to have you on for quite some time. So I'm just going to kick it off and we're just going to get started. For everyone here, I'm sure a lot of people here follow you and know who you are. But for those of you that are here that don't, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. Tell everyone a little bit about your story, maybe when you were first getting diagnosed or how long you had symptoms before that, what that process was like.
Okay, so I was diagnosed with lupus in November 2019. I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis after 6 months of having symptoms. So I was experiencing, I had the butterfly rash, some swelling of the body, and it got to a point where it was unbearable. After 2 days, I gained 20 pounds of water weight. So I went to the hospital and I got a bunch of tests ran, and they finally found out that that's what it was. It was lupus after a biopsy and everything. So it's been a wild journey. I have been experiencing inflammation of my kidneys, my heart, my lungs, joint pain, joint inflammation. So it's been wild, but I'm here and I'm grateful. So.
Wow. When you were in the hospital and you had gained like such sudden water weight, had you ever heard of lupus before? Were you familiar with it?
So I heard of lupus. I knew 2 people that had lupus, one that is actually very close to me and another a coworker of mine. But I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that it was an autoimmune disease that they had. And once I started researching my symptoms and what was happening, that's when I started to learn more about lupus and what it can do to the body.
Right. So when you were diagnosed, like what was your life like work-wise, relationship-wise, or just like anything? Like what was your normal life like? And then how did things change as you were now starting to come to terms or, get used to what is now like your new life, so to speak?
Well, it definitely was a drastic change. I'm a teacher. I still am a teacher. I was teaching during my whole diagnosis process. And I was also very social, very outgoing. I still am, but it's changed a lot because I've had to start listening to my body and really giving myself the rest that my body needs. And I wasn't doing that. I was in grad school. I was working full time. I was tutoring. I was working so many different jobs at once. And I feel like this was a way to tell me to slow down. Honestly.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the hardest things that a lot of us struggle with is, we want to keep going, but our body's really letting us know, like, no, I need to rest right now. For us to keep going, you're going to have to let me stop and rest for a while.
Especially when you're so used to being so active and doing so many things. Resting is just like, how do I do this?
Yeah. Well, you're still super outgoing. I mean, that's one of the things I love about following you on social media because you're very bubbly and you're very fun. So I would love to chat about that a little bit. Like what made you want to get out there and start advocating? Because I mean, so you've been diagnosed a couple of years, but I feel like even in just the first few years, you're still learning so much about how lupus affects your body compared to everyone else. And I don't know really if you find that balance quite yet, because it's still like, I don't know for you, but for a lot of stories I hear in my own, like you're still finding out which medicines work well and what triggers you and, certain things that you need to do. So what has it been like figuring all of those things out, but also kind of jumping into the advocacy world at the same time?
So I'm still learning every single day something new. I actually started my advocacy this past August. I was in the hospital for a week. I had a severe lupus flare. I had pneumonia. I was not doing well. And I remember being in the hospital, and I was pretty isolated because they still had specific rules in place for because of COVID. And I remember saying to myself, like, I cannot be the only person that's going through this. I need to share my story. I need to connect with other people and just figure out how to keep going. So I made an Instagram account, and it's MyLoopyLife, and I just went with it. And it turned into something amazing. Like, I built so many friendships and relationships, and I've learned so much more about lupus than I already knew because everybody's journeys are so different. So I know what it could be. I know what it is for some other people. And, like you mentioned, medication, treatment, there are so many different treatment options. I just recently started Benlysta because the previous treatment that I was on was not working for me. So it's really a trial and error, and it always will be, honestly.
Yeah, it's like a roller coaster. There is so much to learn. I still learn after 20 years. So, and I've seen you recently on Instagram, showing like your journey with like getting the injections and things like that. So I think it's, amazing that you put that out there. And, it always makes me like chuckle a little bit because people that have lupus, like, I feel like we're so motivated in type A that we have all this stuff going on. And we're like, you know what? I think I'm going to jump into the advocacy world and like share my story and do more, right? Where most people would be like, no, I'm going to go sleep for like the next year, right? But I think that's something just amazing about our community that I love. And like you said, I've personally never been on that medication. But being able to share with other people, like what the experience is like, what works for you, what doesn't, I think it's crucial. Like, it was only from meeting other people and hearing them talk about these triggers. And, I was like, well, what's a trigger? Like, my doctor never explained that to me when I was first diagnosed. And so that's why I think the advocacy world and, social media is a tool that's actually really good in terms of learning about those things, right? So tell us a little bit now, as you're kind of soaking in all of the information and making plans for your life, what is it like? Because I know you dipped into the coaching world and helping other people now that are just diagnosed.
So right now, I'm working on coaching other warriors. I feel like since I started this page, I'm so passionate about helping people on their journey and just helping them navigate it, especially when you're diagnosed for the first time. You have so many questions, and there are so many things that our doctors sometimes don't share with us because it's not something that they think about. And that's why this community is so important and so powerful, because we really learn about things from each other. So I'm working right now on coaching other warriors to just help them navigate that and let them know that it's okay. Some people, they get diagnosed with lupus and they think that their life is over, but it's not. There are days that are terrible, but we can just navigate our new normal and thrive throughout this lupus journey.
Well, I love that you're doing that. It's really important. I have two more questions. Actually, I have three more questions. One is, what do you think, like for you right now, what is the most challenging thing that you've dealt with in terms of lupus, say in the past, like 6 months, whether physical, emotional, like what are some things that are still, I like people to understand, like, yeah, there's great times and you're doing, amazing things, but you still have challenging days.
Yes. Every day is a challenge. Even if I look fine, I'm not always fine. Most of the time, I'm not okay. I want to say the biggest challenge for me has been work. I'm a teacher. I'm an elementary school teacher. It requires a lot of energy. And I love it. I love my job, but it's been difficult this year for sure. I still commute to work. So I'm 45 minutes away from my job. So that takes a toll also because of my chronic fatigue. Right. So that's definitely something that I'm trying to work through, making sure I prioritize my downtime and making sure that I get the rest that my body needs so that I am able to function for work.
So what does that look like because we understand as warriors, like you probably get home and eat and get your stuff ready and you're exhausted and you probably, take that time to sleep because you have to do it 4 more days, right, in a row.
Yep.
what is your explanation for people that, are healthy and maybe don't understand that, like, you have to rest, and probably your bulk of your free time is maybe on the weekends, but if I imagine correctly, you're probably still resting and trying to catch up on rest, right? So what does that answer look like to people that really don't understand that this is your life?
Well, I definitely try my best, and I don't always listen to my body when it needs the rest. That type A personality, always needing to do things. But I definitely try to make the comparison of like fatigue being nothing compared to just being tired. There are days where I physically, even if I'm not in pain, I'm so fatigued that I can't move. There are days where I can't even lift my arms up because my body feels so weak and so tired. And something that would take maybe a person who doesn't have a chronic illness or doesn't experience chronic fatigue to get done takes me, days to finish because I get so exhausted 5 minutes into an activity. It could be cleaning my house. It could be an assignment for work. It can be doing the laundry, anything.
Right.
It's definitely not easy.
Yeah, it's a struggle. I remember, when I was younger and if my room was a mess, I'd be like, oh, I can finish this in an hour. It'd be like a little tornado, right? Now it's like 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, I did 20 minutes. I'll go back tomorrow. I'm tired. And you just think, sometimes I remind myself like, wow, I used to be able to wrap that up like in an hour, but I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to do the best that I can today and it will get done. Like, that's kind of where I'm at after all these years. It will get done. It's not the end of the world, right?
That's an amazing mindset to have, honestly. And it takes a lot to be able to change your mindset towards that direction, especially when you're used to being so active and finishing an activity in an hour. It's not easy. So
what would you say to someone, like, one of the best pieces of advice you can give to someone that is just getting diagnosed? There's obviously so many different areas that you could go with that, but what's something that you wish someone or a doctor had told you when you were first diagnosed?
I definitely think that the biggest thing for me, for someone being first diagnosed, is making sure that you advocate for yourself. No one will tell you that unless they have been through it on their own. A doctor is not going to tell you it. Someone who hasn't experienced this will not say it to you. You have to advocate amongst yourself, for yourself, amongst doctors, family, your job, your friends. You have to do that, because if you don't, no one's going to understand. You won't get the proper treatment that you need, whether it's medical treatment, social treatment, anything. That's what I have learned. And it took me a year to learn that. It really did, because when I was first trying to figure out what was happening and I went to the hospital, my ankle was swollen and they told me it was probably a mosquito bite or an allergic reaction. My severe kidney inflammation. So without all this research and help from my friends to figure out what's happening, they would have just been like, oh, whatever, it's fine. You're fine. Take some Benadryl.
Right.
Oh,
Put
it's
some ice on
really
it.
important.
Yeah. Well, it is great advice. And, we have to be really careful, I think, when we're, at the hospital or with doctors or whatnot. I think sometimes it can be a little intimidating, especially I think when you're younger. I got diagnosed when I was younger and I didn't know a lot about lupus, right? But the reality is, like, I know what my baseline normal feels like. So if something feels off, like, yes, I know that maybe their minds go to like, what's the most common thing that it could be, like the simplest answer. But I think pushing and knowing like, this is not right. This is not normal for me. There has to be a deeper issue. Can we just like dig a little bit further? And also, I think adding to that, if you have a doctor that isn't willing to do that, if you're able to get a second opinion or, see someone else, like, I think that that's crucial too, because I've seen a lot of different rheumatologists. They all kind of treat lupus very differently. So I don't know if you've ever experienced, that as well.
Yeah, I've actually been through 3 rheumatologists. I finally found my perfect match. She's amazing. But it took a while. And, I've had one who was just like 100 milligrams of prednisone and that's it. See you later. Or let's figure out lifestyle changes and here are your options. I think that's the biggest thing, is that I didn't know I had options initially.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like an amazing doctor. And yeah, I think, over the years, like I've found some amazing doctors, and I've had this question a lot lately, functional medicine doctors that are MDs, but also do functional medicine. And the reason I love seeing them is anytime there is an issue, whether it's lupus or whatever it is, they give me the pharmaceutical option and the natural supplemental option. And they say, these are two, they're very similar. I'll let you, choose, like, which would you rather try first, right? So I just feel like, okay, maybe sometimes we don't always have to go straight to medicine, right? Because I have found things that have worked. But so many doctors, and they think very differently, and they have a lot of different answers. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I'm glad that we finally got to interview you, because you're just like a spunky little like fire. I love it.
I feel the same way about you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So for anyone here that does not follow you yet, like tell them about your coaching and like what you do with that, and like what your options are there, and also how they can find you.
All right. Sounds good. So you all can find me on Instagram at MyLoopyLife. On that page, there is a link in my bio that has a lot of information. So if you were to be interested in coaching with me, there's an application that you can fill out. And it basically just asks you a few questions as to why you are looking for support in your lupus journey. And I feel like that's really important, because you really need to think why you need support and what areas you need help in navigating your journey. So I would love to help anyone with that, whoever needs it. It is my passion. I love helping people, especially when it comes to this, because I know how difficult it can be. And yeah.
I love that. Well, definitely go and check her out. She's amazing. Go follow her on Instagram. I love all your reels. I love your posts. She's a lot of fun. And yeah, it was great having you on. And I thank you.
Thanks, Marissa. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you everyone for staying tuned to this episode, kicking off season 9. You can come and follow us again next Tuesday night at 8 Eastern for our next episode. And we will chat with you all soon. Have a great night. Bye.